there, it's Kevin with GatheringMagic.com with this week's episode of the Rogues Alley. This week I'm going to do a tribute to one of my buddies who plays at my local game store. Phenomenal brewer. He's done work for me over at RogueDeckBuilder.com. Actually has won one of our Rogue Master Brewer competitions that we've done in the past. And he, like I said, he's a phenomenal brewer. And he took this to game day and got second place with this. Only dropping one match in the finals to a blue-red control, torrential gearholt control, in a close game, best of three. Lost the last match to it. So anyway, it was a pretty diverse little tournament we held, and this deck just crushed everything that was thrown at it. The whole idea of this deck is to utilize Throne of the God-Pharaoh with as many cards that synergize with it. And so you want to Throne of the God-Pharaoh out, and then a particular vehicle to then be able to crew all of your tokens at the end of your turn or before the end of your turn, so that Throne of the God-Pharaoh triggers off and then dishes damage. So what was really good about this is we had a lot of control. Watched it play through like Fumigates and through the various red removal spells like Kozilek's Return. And it didn't really matter as long as you had a vehicle on board. The cards like the Servo Exhibitions and the Sram Expertise could still get in the instant speed damage, or at least on your own turn damage before they're wiped away, by crewing a vehicle and then having the Throne of the God-Pharaoh trigger off with the tapped damage. So this isn't quite Tyler's list. I've updated a little bit based upon cards that I think would go well in this deck. And again, I don't suggest doing this. It's more of a thought experience to try to figure out like what works in a deck. When you run kind of like, I'm not running any removal in the main, and that's typically a bad thing to do, of course, because you want to be able to interact with your opponents unless you're an all-out combo deck. But a lot of times your opponents are going to be, there will be certain decks that are better at going through their game plan than you and need to disrupt theirs. However, for this, I just want to figure out what works and what isn't working. So in this particular one, we're going to run a bunch of 4-of copies of particular cards with a 24 land count. And I'm not quite sure if that's too high or not. The best card in the deck is by far Sram's Expertise, as it adds 3 servos to the battlefield, as well as allows you to cast a 3 or less drop. So whether it be another Weaponcraft Enthusiast or an Aethersphere Harvester, or even the Throne of the God-Pharaoh, then it really pushes you ahead a turn. And that's very, very pertinent for this deck trying to get in for the damage. So this is an aggro deck. It runs kind of as a mix between like a tokens variant and a Mardu vehicles. I know that other people have tried Throne of the God-Pharaoh with like the Hidden Stockpile and Cryptothrite. I've seen some decks that have ran the vehicles before to tap down all the tokens, and even cards like Anointed Procession. But what makes this deck kind of different than those particular decks, it's fast. So it's very similar to the Mardu vehicles, with getting out like the 1-drop of the Toolcraft Exemplar into a Heart of Kiran or a Scrapheap Scrounger, and then your opponent is already playing the defensive route, and then the Throne of the God-Pharaoh gives that reach or that range at the end of the once they've stabilized. Like I said, once they've fumigated, or if a Kozilek's Return has wiped everything, then all of your token producers like the Weaponcraft Enthusiast or Sram's Expertise can still get in that damage, that kind of pseudo haste, through tapping into a vehicle, attacking with the vehicle, and then having the Throne of the God-Pharaoh trigger. So the Throne of the God-Pharaoh is a 4 in this deck. It is a legendary artifact, so unfortunately if you have multiples in your hand, then it's just kind of a dead card. That's definitely one of the weaknesses of the deck. But I think it's the whole focal point of the deck. So you do want to run 4 of. Let's just go down the list. So lands is 24 lands. We're going to run a 1 of Forsaken Sanctuary, and then the usual suspects of Concealed Courtyard and Shambling Vent. I'm also going to run 4 of Westvale Abbeys, because I think Westvale Abbeys is a card that is incredibly good with like Weaponcraft Enthusiast and Sram's Expertise. It gives a whole nother angle for the deck to win with a 9/7 lifelinker. Especially, you can get your opponent down very, very quickly with the Toolcraft Exemplars and Night Market Lookouts with the Throne of the God-Pharaoh. And then the Westvale Abbey just basically at that point needs to be, if they're down to a 10, then you can swing in for 9 damage and then have the Throne of the God-Pharaoh trigger off the Westvale Abbey at the end of turn. So basically all you need to do is get your opponent down half their life, and then the tokens can have an alternate kind of evasive way to finish off the game. So we are going to run 4 Thraben Inspectors. I just think that if you're in white, you're going to be running 4 Thraben Inspectors because the card is just, it's really, really good. As far as Standard is concerned, it's probably the best card, if not, one of the best cards, if not the best card in Standard. Feels like a modern card on the power level, as it does create that clue token, which synergizes with the Toolcraft Exemplar. So we've all seen that before. A first turn Toolcraft Exemplar into a second turn Inspector, another Exemplar or something, and then you have your artifact on board for the Toolcraft Exemplar. Now, Market Lookout's just a 2 of in this one, but it actually is pretty much it's a very potent card. So it is only a 2 of though, because I think it is inferior to both Thraben Inspector and Toolcraft Exemplar, and we are a little bit heavier on the white sources, just slightly, than the swamps. So, and then the other 2 drops we're going to run is 2 Servo Exhibitions. I think that's the right number. 2 Heart of Kirans, 4 Scrapheap Scroungers, and 4 Throne of the God-Pharaohs. Again, Scrapheap Scrounger is really good because we are running a lot of 1-drops that have the ability to then get exiled from the graveyard to bring back a Scrapheap Scrounger. Scrapheap Scrounger is very annoying for control decks because it just keeps on coming. Has great synergy with the Throne of the God-Pharaoh. At the end of turn, it's basically going to get in there for an additional damage. The Weaponcraft Enthusiast is a 4 of. It's really good with the Throne of the God-Pharaoh. Aethersphere Harvester is the key card in this one because it's got Crew 1. I would be running more Heart of Kirans, but I think the Crew 1 on the Aethersphere Harvester is key. Plus, it is the lifelink that we need versus the mono red decks. Aethersphere Harvester is really tough for them. That's why a lot of them have been now running 4 Braids in the Ramming Up Red, as you have to kill the Aethersphere Harvester. Then we're going to run 2 Gideons. Gideons is really good in this deck. I don't know if you want to go to 4 Hearts, 4 Gideons. As the emblem is very powerful, plus Gideon himself is a very potent creature as it attacks in for 5, does steal synergy because you do tap with Gideon, it still does trigger at the end of turn with Throne of the God-Pharaoh. And then last but not least, we have the Sram's Expertise. As, like I said, it pushes you forward a whole turn is what it feels like. So, I mean, the cool thing about this is you can cast, like, on turn 3, you can cast, if it's between casting the Throne of the God-Pharaoh and the Aethersphere Harvester, then you can rely on Sram's Expertise then to push you through that turn to get what you need. Because you want both the vehicle and Throne of the God-Pharaoh out, and it's a lot of time the curve is kind of awkward by turn 4 to have both out. So Sram's Expertise cheats you that. So you can have your tokens you need, plus your throne / your vehicle, all in that same turn. Onto the sideboard, we're going to run 3 Dispossesses. I think if you're in black, you should always run 3 to 4 because of Torrential Gearhook decks, because of Throne of the God-Pharaoh decks. All right, so we're going to run a little bit of control in the sideboard with 2 Declarations of Stone, 2 Fatal Push, and 1 Anguished Unmaking. Also, Dust On is incredibly powerful in this deck. It probably should be in the main, as it brings back everything but Scrapheap Scroungers. But we're going to throw it in the sideboard. 2 Fragmentizes to attack other people's Aethersphere Harvesters or like cards like Cast Out. And it's just a very, very versatile card at the moment. There's a lot of artifacts that are worthwhile or enchantments that are worthwhile to Fragmentize. And then for the mono red matchup, we are going to run Authority of the Consuls. It's really, really tough for them to beat an Authority of the Consuls, as all their creatures that have the haste come into battlefield tapped, and it just really makes their creatures very weak. The haste is the whole reason for running them, and if you take that aspect away, then the deck just folds. Plus, the life gain from the Authority of the Consuls is huge. We are also going to run 2 Voldaren Pariah as it synergizes with the Sram's Expertise and the Weaponcraft Enthusiast. So anyway, that's the gist of it. We're going to queue it up and see how well we do. And you can follow along with the games in the comment section as well as in the description. So let's get on to game number 1. Alrighty, so game number 1, I looked over and only the audio was recording. So unfortunately, I want to show you this in the replay because it was such an intense game. And it shows you just the power. I'm afraid that we're not going to see this again. This is versus mono or black-white zombies. And had very legitimate draws. Went to game 3. And let's just show you how these played out, because you can see just the power. Zombies tried to race me, so a little bit of a spoiler alert here. So game number 1, let's go ahead and get into game number 1. We have my opponent mulliganing to 6, I believe, and we keep our hand because what we see here is basically ideal. We have both the Throne of the God-Pharaoh plus the Aethersphere Harvester plus a Night Market Lookout. So I'm thinking, hey, this is pretty good. We're going to be able to get in for some damage to the Night Market Lookout, then start tapping it to the Aethersphere Harvester, effectively draining our opponent 5 damage per turn, attacking in. And also the lifelink, basically we're going to gain possibly 9 life through this little combo here. By every time this gets tapped, we gain a life. The Aethersphere Harvester is going to have 2 activations to gain life. And to me, that seems like a pretty legit game plan. However, we don't know what we're up against, and we don't get a lot of value out of this Night Market Lookout because our opponent does throw out the Wayward Servant. Wayward Servant is also a card that is rough because we're not going to be able to go on an all-out plan of trying to race by kind of taxing our opponent. And this is kind of the mirror breaker, kind of board clog breaker of the black-white zombie strategy. The whole reason of going black-white is a Wayward Servant, as it can just start draining the opponent with cards like Crypt Breaker, getting an additional token out and throwing away useless lands, as well as the Diregraph Colossus, creating excess tokens. And even if I do have like a Westvale Abbey out, eventually they can drain me to death and have a huge board state. So I'm not liking seeing that. We do end up throwing out the Throne of the God-Pharaoh. Drawing the Plains was also not something we wanted to see, as we needed a relevant card here. So now we're down to a 17. The Scrapheap's also really, really bad in this matchup. It's a card that's going to come out in the sideboard. So the whole thing, you're not going to be able to see the sideboards because of the replay, but I took out the Heart of Kiran as a 1-of, the Scrapheap Scroungers as a 4-of, and the Toolcraft Exemplars, and then brought in all the control, the Declaration of Stones, the Fatal Pushes, the Dusk to Dawns, and then that just gives us a way to kind of interact. Versus zombies, you want to get rid of one of their key cards, and it's always going to be a Diregraph Colossus, a Wayward Servant, or a Lord of the Accursed, and then you're going to ignore everything else. Possibly a Crypt Breaker is something you want to get rid of with an early Fatal Push. The Deck and Stones are very, very good because later on they can get rid of all of the zombie tokens, so you don't want to waste it on something that's not relevant, but in this case they have 2 of their more relevant cards. We also have the Harvester, which is weird, and I decided to keep it back just so I can not have take a bunch of damage here. And my opponent is going to drain me with those Diregraph. Double Diregraph is really, really potent with the Wayward Servant. And pretty much post-board, there's no way I can get out of this. No Dusk Dawn. The Weaponcraft Enthusiast was pretty good because it does clog the board up. And we do have the ability to crew to the... So you can crew... That's what's cool about crew. Is it says up to or power. You tap any number of creatures you control with total power 1 or more. So I can tap as many of these, even the 0/1 Enthusiast, you can tap to it, and you can start draining them and getting some life off the Night Market Lookout. And so that's a pretty decent plan. However, my opponent attacks in, and I know there's got to be a Dark Salvation, but I think it's worthwhile here to trade with a Dark Salvation and Diregraph Colossus, because I think this is a mistake by my opponent. I don't think they really needed to go all out here. I think that the better game plan would be just to sit back. I think even casting a Diregraph Colossus for 1 here and killing off the Night Market Lookout and not losing the Diregraph Colossus, to me that seems like a better play. But my opponent does decide to go the strategy of using 2 cards to kill off the Aethersphere Harvester, which could have backfired if I had another one in hand. But it ends up being a pretty decent play. And we draw a Thraben Inspector, so at this point, a Thraben's fine, but we needed to find another vehicle to have that blocking/taxing strategy. And unfortunately, though, we don't really have anything to do with the Throne of the God-Pharaoh. You can see, though, how this can get out of control later on if we do have a way to crew them. And so, again, another Aethersphere Harvester out here, though, would prevent my opponent from attacking in, as a 3/5 body is very relevant. And then we could just leave even 1 or 2 back per turn, so we could effectively get in for 4-5 damage to Night Market Lookout per turn, draining my opponent with the Throne of the God-Pharaoh. So, but I think Diregraph at that point, though, could still get out of control quicker than I could get out of control. So Lord of the Cursed here is huge. Makes all the zombies bigger. Now I just know that I'm pretty much have lost this game. But a card like Dusk Dawn in sideboard is going to be very, very relevant. So anyway, opponent attacks in. I decide just to YOLO it and go to 1 because I do have the Westvale Abbey option. And we find another Throne of the God-Pharaoh by cracking the clue. And at this point, I see, yeah, I make a Westvale Abbey, he activates the Menace, and I just die. There's nothing I can do. So that was game number 1. Again, game number 2 sided out the Scrapheaps and Toolcraft Exemplars as well as 1 Heart, and then brought in the removal package. So game number 2 starts off, we're on the play this time, and I see this hand, and this hand's great. This, again, is everything a girl could ask for. So we have the Thraben Inspector ×2, which is very good versus zombies because it's going to clog the board, plus give us time to build up. We have the Aethersphere Harvester, and if our opponent, the way my opponent's going to try to win this game is by overwhelming us. So this Dust On just guarantees our opponent is going to overextend and then die to overextension. And Harvester is also going to be a very, very huge roadblock for zombies to try to have to overcome. So we'll start off here just with the Thraben Inspector. And our opponent starts off with the Forsaken Sanctuary to play tap, so no 1-drop. I'm not sure if my opponent's running a lot of 1-drops. We didn't see any this entire game. So I decided to go with the Shambling Vent here just so that I can guarantee that we get the Harvester out. So Throne of the God-Pharaoh is not that important to... I could have done the Throne and then attacked in and then effectively got my opponent to 18. But then the next turn, what's my best option? Cast a Harvester and then get in for another 2 damage. Whereas Thraben Inspector here, we can start building a board state. So we get in for the 1, and my opponent puts out the Mummy Paramount, and we go the Gideon here. So Aethersphere Harvester comes down, and we draw a Gideon. So now I'm glad that I played it that way, because if we draw into a basic land, we have the Gideon. If not, we have the Throne of the God-Pharaoh, and I'm loving to see the Lord of the Curse, because it puts his zombies kind of in a weird position. If he plays more of them, they just get blown out by this Dust On. He does get to keep a Lord of the Curse, but if he plays another one, they all die. So, yeah, so it's a very powerful card versus the zombie strategy. So here we will go the Gideon and puke out a token. And this allows us to really be effective here by clogging up the board, forcing my opponent to overextend. And we see the Diregraph Colossus, which was really powerful, other than he still can't attack into that roadblock called Aethersphere Harvester. And here we draw a Night Market Lookout, which is awesome because we can go Throne and then Night Market Lookout. And then I decide here, wait, my opponent's at 19. Has to block the Gideon or take 5 damage. So that's what I'm expecting my opponent to do. And that's fine. At that point, my opponent loses a Mummy Paramount. And I'm still draining my opponent. Because I was just going to play the strategy of just, you know, sitting back, and then just slowly draining with the Throne of the God-Pharaoh Night Market Lookout. But I think that's a losing proposition by letting zombies build up. We're going to go on the aggro, and this just shows you how quick this deck can change gears. And so we will crew the Night Market Lookout on the Aethersphere Harvester, make Gideon a 5/5, attacking with both. My opponent now can't block the 3. We're going to gain life, so we're not in any jeopardy of having a huge backswing, even though the Mummy Paramount with the Diregraph Colossus can get out of control. But this is going to gain us 3 life. If it decides not to block with the Gideon, like the options are pretty bad. This is your aggro card. This is your Lord. This is your Create More Zombies card. So blocking any of them into Gideon just seems like it's a bad idea, but I think it actually ends up being the right play. However, my opponent decides not to do it. So it goes down to 10, and this just shows you the power of Throne of God-Pharaoh. I'm like, well, I can keep everything back and block. What's the point? Dead next turn to a lethal attack, most likely, because the Throne is going to do 6 damage here. Gideon still remains a creature to trigger off Throne, and so does Aethersphere Harvester. So it takes him down to a 4, and now my opponent has to swing in for lethal or just dies to Throne of the God-Pharaoh. And that ends up being my opponent realizes that, no way to really deal with it, no Fragmentize or Cast Out to deal with the Throne of the God-Pharaoh, and that is game. And you can't say that was a bad draw by zombies. Of course, there could have been a 1-drop. The lands came in awkwardly with the Forsaken Sanctuary, having to play on turn 1. We didn't see a 1-drop, though. Could have a handful of like Dark Salvations, maybe another Lord of the Curse, maybe another Diregraph Colossus in hand. But typically that isn't a bad hand with zombies. It's positioned itself to really take over the board within a few turns here. So that was game number 2. And then game number 3 was also interesting. It took a while for me to realize the play here, which actually I'm glad I wasn't commentating. At this point, I figured out that the video series was dark, so I decided to do the replay instead, and so I had more time to think about my options here. So of course we keep kind of a risky hand here. It was the Shambling Vent. We don't have any plan in sight, but Gideon is really powerful in this match. So is the Harvester. Pariah can be powerful. So for game 3, I brought in the Pariahs. Game 2, I didn't, because I was thinking that there would be just too many 1-drops that aren't worth killing, like the card that comes back from Amonkhet. There could be, even like Mummy Paramounts aren't that great to kill. Diregraph Colossus tokens aren't that great. But thought that maybe if my opponent is going more high impact cards, Pariah could just be a blowout. So I brought it in, and I was tickled to see the Throne of the God-Pharaohs that we draw, because it's the exact card that we needed, because this allows us to race basically any draw that our opponent has. But Zombies had kind of an awkward draw again. The Harvester comes out. We want the Harvester so it can attack next turn. You don't want to go Enthusiast. There's no point to it. And again, my opponent's got the Diregraph Colossus, Mummy Paramount, off to a pretty good start. But then I see, okay, what's the play here? So I'm thinking we just go Weaponcraft Enthusiast and have a Fatal Push up. Probably the right play here. I was thinking about just Fatal Pushing the Mummy Paramount, but that's a trap when you're versus zombies to kill one of these cards that isn't relevant. You want to save the Fatal Push for something more relevant. So that's what I decided to do. Enthusiast. We'll race here. This is pretty good. Crew them all, because I don't want to be blocking here, because each one of these represents a damage later on. We'll be able to lifelink, and if my opponent wants to race, it puts my opponent in a bad position, being down to 13, us back up 18, with either Gideon or Voldaren Pariah to kind of take this game over. So my opponent draws another Diregraph Colossus, which does allow for some pretty good aggression. We also have the Westvale Abbey route. And so here's what gets interesting. I see a Sram's Expertise. I'm like, oh, so I can go Sram's Expertise, Fatal Push, crew a bunch of things. But then I see the huge out here, which I can get my opponent down to a 1 by casting a Gideon, Embling the Gideon, Fatal Pushing the Diregraph Colossus, crewing now with the 1-2 Weaponcraft Enthusiast on to now a 4-6 Aethersphere Harvester. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, getting my opponent down to 5, and then we have 4 creatures to crew. So unfortunately, the Sram's Expertise is a lot weaker. I could go Sram's, crew, leave back some blockers, go up to 15, but we don't get a Fatal Push to Diregraph Colossus, so basically we just get our opponent down to, let's see, we attack him for 3 with the Aethersphere Harvester. That's down to 10, 9 with the crewed, 8 with the Aethersphere Harvester being tapped. Maybe crew a few others, leave back enough blockers, get my opponent down to 6. Probably going to win either way, but Gideon, I think, was just the right play here. So that's what makes Gideon so powerful, is the ability to emblem immediately. And the cool thing about Gideon here is it does trigger off that Revolt for the Fatal Push. So we'll do that. Fatal Push Diregraph Colossus, crew in, and get my opponent down to 1. Now it's basically saying, hey, you're going to do 16 damage to me in 1 turn, or you lose the game. Which is something that zombies can typically do, especially with like a Lord of the Accursed. The Lord of the Accursed puts out a emblem, which puts the Mummy Paramount up to a 5/5. So it can get in for 8, 9, 10. If you had another zombie, that would actually create 2 zombies, and then possibly seeing for 12. But it's just out of the range of the Throne of the God-Pharaoh just taking over the game. So very impressive game number 1 with the deck. I do believe that we do want some sort of removal package, whether it be Dust On in the, you can mess around with the numbers. Again, I don't know where the right cuts are for this deck. Is going to take us some just finessing around with the numbers here. I'm not the best. I'll admit I'm a good brewer. Debatable. I'm a good idea generator with decks, but like what really makes it a deck strong is when a brewer like myself takes a deck, the idea of the deck, and then passes it along to more of the people that are good with the nitty-gritties, that are good of fine-tuning the deck, the math, the curves. And I think there's a lot of potential to this deck, and I guess we'll see as time goes on in game number 2, 3, and 4. We'll just get right on to that. I am doing these in 2-man queues just so we can update the deck as needed if we'd like to. But we'll end up going on to game number 2. Okay, game number 2. Yes, we'd like to play first. I think this is a key hand. The double Gideon's awkward. We do have the Throne of the God-Pharaoh, though, so you're always going to keep a hand with Throne of the God-Pharaoh. Well, this can be used as an emblem. The second, you can actually double emblem. Or even a better scenario is go plus Gideon, or plus 0 Gideon, and then emblem, and then cast another Gideon emblem. And then swing in for lethal with the tokens. We have Servo Exhibition and the Weaponcraft Enthusiast. So I probably going to go up and count for the Gideons. I've been thinking and thinking and thinking about it. I think it's the right play. All right, Evolving Wilds, probably a black-green Delirium deck. It's the deck, Tireless Tracker type deck that uses Evolving Wilds at the moment. We do have the land, the third land, which is just awesome. The best draw we could have drawn into. We do want a fourth one within the next few turns, but we don't need it for like 3 turns, I would say, because we have next turn Weaponcraft Enthusiast, the turn after that Throne of the God-Pharaoh. Nightmare Lookout, okay, this can be an interesting little deck. So, let's just go ahead and attack in with the servos. Wonder if this is another Throne of the God-Pharaoh deck. And we will go ahead and cast this bad boy. And we did draw the Gideon, so I have a hard time seeing my opponent win against this hand. Especially the Night Market Lookout. It really can't even attack in. We will not... Oh, that's kind of cool. The Survivor's Encampment. That is actually really cool. I wonder if I should put this card in. Gives us a way to tap down, but I'm not sure I care too much. And it's going to be a Brazen Scourge. I don't care about that. My opponent can't race me. Draw another land, which is okay because we draw another land. We could cast the Throne in the same turn. All right, what is the play? I think the play is just Gideon, make a dude. So 15 to 16 with a Gideon out. My opponent has access to 4 mana. Could be a Chandra here. Could be... It seems like it's more of an aggressive match with Brazen Scourge. Brazen Scourge is interesting. That's kind of... There's just a better Exert card with haste at the moment. The Crop Captain or Cropped Exert can't block. But definitely going up against a Brew. I think Survivor's Encampment, actually, that is a cool card. Maybe over Forsaken Ruins. I don't know. Didn't we already have this, though? With the Ally Encampment, doesn't do the exact same thing. So Hunger Flames kills off the Knight token. And Shock kills off the Gideon, but that's a lot of cards. Or, well, it's 2 cards to get rid of the Gideon. And now the Scourge comes in. So, we get another land. Which... What's the play here? I think the play is... Throne gets down our opponent down to a lethal for just tapping. Is it just Gideon and then Emblem and attack in? So that does 9. And then we can activate Shambling Vent and Throne of the God-Pharaoh the turn after. I think that's the better play. I'm not going to mess around with the... Yeah, it puts our opponent down to a 7. And then Throne of the God-Pharaoh is going to be lethal. So lots of removal from my opponent. this should be a lot of spot removal, shocks, hungry flames. Should be an easy matchup for us, especially with our sideboard coming in like Authority of the Consuls. I'll probably go into the control route, just say out the Scrapheap Toolcraft Exemplar combo. Don't know why my opponent is being slow here. But I put us down to 7 and needs to do 12 damage in 1 turn, which is possible for a red deck. 3 cards in hand, has the mana for it. Glorybringer would be a little bit interesting here. Just a Snare Thopter, some sort of budget haste deck is what we're playing against. But it's over next turn. So we go down to a 9. 2 cards in hand. Would have to use the Night Market Lookout to cast anything with colored mana. We have a Westvale Abbey, which we could actually activate and just swing in for lethal there. But we'll just... Yeah, which tech do I want to show my opponent? Because Westvale Abbey just wins the game as well. Right? Is there anything my opponent could do to stop the Westvale Abbey? And I want to say no. 2, 4, 6, 8. Yeah, I think I'd rather show the Westvale Abbey tech. Than the Throne of the God-Pharaoh. Alrighty. Alright, so we'll go to the sideboard. Like I said, I think we're going up against kind of a budget deck. Maybe a new player. Nothing wrong with that. So we'll bring in Fatal Pushes. Do I care? I don't even think I care with interacting with my opponent. The only thing I need to bring in is just the Authority of the Consuls. And everything else is fine. I mean, we could take out... There are things we could take out, like the Scrap Heaps, the Toolcraft Exemplars. And then bring in Fatal Pushes and Deccan Stones and things like that. But is that even... My opponent is running a lot of 3s. So Dusk Dawn is very much a possibility. Pariah is too much of a liability with cards like Hungry Flames. So I actually don't even think we need to mess with this. I think that we just want to run like this. Or we could take out a couple. Might as well put in some Fatal Pushes. Given a few more ways to interact. But all in all, this should be a very easy matchup. Well, it's a budget deck, so of course, right there is a disadvantage. And second off, we are a white deck with Aethersphere Harvester and Westvale Abbey versus a deck that is trying to, dish off damage. So usually that's the matchups we want to see. Very keepable hand, Fatal Push, Aethersphere Harvester, Shram's Expertise. Yeah, I'll probably be throwing in some Gideons for, I don't know, Night Market Lookout. The more and more I play with it, it's such a great card. But I think it's the cut for 2 more Gideons. And that just made the hand a ton better with the Toolcraft. Because now we can be very aggressive and actually just play the Shambling Vent tap next turn. Unless we want to Fatal Push something, which not a lot of stuff we care about. Yep, shock happens. Is this a Mardu deck, huh? So yeah, let's go Shambling Vent. There's no reason for anything else because we can't kill a 3-drop with the Fatal Push. And combo is interesting, but it's something I'm not too worried about. We are getting drained here. But we have the Westvale Abbey again. And next turn we have the Sram's Expertise into a Toolcraft Exemplar, into a crew. And we're going to take a lot of damage from the combo. But we're going to gain a lot of that back. So my opponent needs like an Abrade to take care of the Harvester. I had this in my sideboard at one point. It's decent versus some decks. And this allows us to go the swamp here. Don't want to show the Westvale Abbey. We will Sram's Expertise, which yes does drain us some. And I think I will attack in. Maybe this isn't the... I'd rather get some life down from my opponent, some life back. I'm not in any real concern at the moment. We have the Westvale Abbey victory. See if there's an artifact needs to come out for the Inventor's Apprentice to really get value. Triple block on the Apprentice. Even this takes us away from the Westvale Abbey. It's fine. Apprentice is something that will get out of control later on. Another Westvale Abbey. Let's go throw the Concealed Courtyard into play. And we'll race. Not too concerned with my life total, as we'll be gaining a lot of life. $16-12. Giant Spectacle. Now I might need to hold back 2 cards in my opponent's hand. Don't have a lot of ways to gain life back. So we'll throw out a Westvale Abbey. And at this point, I think I just need to attack into the Toolcraft and the Shambling Vent. Leave back the Harvester to crew. You can Fatal Push the Toolcraft. Sure. But we get a combo out of the way now. We do lose some life, but that's fine. It gets 2 for 1. We gain some life back, go to a 9. And we do have the crew possibility with the Harvester. Like, Westvale Abbey is getting further and further away from being able to utilize it, but I think it's perfectly fine just creating creatures at this point. The Courier's weak. 4-drop, just a Snare Thopter. Very weak as well. And we'll go ahead and crew. And I think we'll just take out the Courier and the Snare Thopter. Go down to a 6. And there is the big bad Gideon. Which I do believe is still worthwhile. As now my opponent has to try to attack into a Gideon. 12 and 6 life. They have to run into Runner. To be honest, this deck feels like a really good draft deck. It's not quite there. It's like trying to be budget Marty vehicle decks. But kind of all over the place. And we'll save our life total here. Opponent loses another Snare Thopter. There's a Heart of Kiran. Gideon can swing in. I think we'll just keep creating a 2/2. You want to put it down to a 9 and go up to an 8. And still be able to crew both the Heart of Kiran and the Harvester if we'd wanted to. But at this point, I think we're just going to find a concession. And we'll go on to the next match. Yep, that's not going to do it. As my opponent cannot block enough of the damage from the air, because that's 4 plus 5 is 9. Yep, and there's the concession. Alrighty, we'll go on to the next one. Alrighty, so match number 3. I have changed the deck list up a little bit. As you can see here, we cut the Night Market Lookouts and added 2 more Gideons to the mix. I think it gives us more bang for our buck. It does kind of make the aggro a little bit weaker, and the ability to ping down our opponents with the Night Market Lookout not as effective, but it allows us to go less on the black. So I cut a swamp, put another plains back in, so we're only running 3 swamps this time. This should be a lot easier on the mana base. So anyway, yes, we like to play first. I think this is the first time we've gone first. This is an interesting hand. I think we keep it. It's aggressive with the Concealed Courtyard, Toolcraft Exemplar, Thraben Inspector. This also could hit the scenario that we like with Toolcraft Exemplar into Heart. So I think you do keep 1 landers with double Toolcraft Exemplar, Thraben Inspector. We have a huge potential for this just snowballing out of control. And so the risk is a lot less, I would say, than keeping just like just one of each, a Thraben and a Toolcraft. Because if we draw a Lantern, that's huge. Yeah, this is a big play. We can go another Toolcraft, and then Thraben Inspector, and then we can go ahead and attack in with the Toolcraft Exemplar. And our opponent is down already to a 17. So if it's a slow control deck, this is going to be a very, very quick hand. Even if my opponent puts out something can trade, yeah, with the Toolcraft, that's fine, because we're still getting it for 4 damage and trading a Selfless Spirit. I think it's just Heart here. Rather than going another Thraben. A land would have made this awesome because we could have put both out and given these first strike. But trading with the Selfless Spirit isn't that bad of a trade. You might actually see my opponent just take the damage. Nope, yeah, I expected that. So down to a 13. And now we have the Heart, which can be crewed. And we have a Thraben Inspector next turn, so most likely we're getting it for 4, even if there's like a Selfless Spirit. This could just be the good old blue-white control deck, or kind of mid-range deck. Don't hit what we need here. You can make the argument just crack a clue and try to hit a land, which I'm going to do. And we indeed do hit the land. We'll Thraben Inspector here. See if a Spellqueller comes down for a Thraben. Sure, I'm okay with that. Now we don't lose a Thraben Inspector to a Spellqueller. So now we get the trigger off the Toolcraft. We'll crew it. Attacking with the Heart. Putting us down to a 9 now. Okay, so we're in great shape. Our opponent could get a Gideon out before we get a Gideon, but at that point we kill their Gideon. They do not kill our Gideon if we draw a land next turn. There's a Thraben Inspector. I think this is just going to be the Monument deck, and so it's pretty even of a matchup, I would say. I'm sure another Spellqueller is in my opponent's hand. We could see a Monument come down. No Monument. Another Heart. Heart is very weak. Yeah, I'd hate to... I think we just do the same thing. Could be another Spellqueller in hand, but we can't play around it at this point. Could be a Stasis Snare. I'm definitely okay with the Stasis Snare because we have the backup part. So we'd have a Snare, Heart. Let's see, so still in pretty decent shape. Just a Cloud Blazer. Yeah, this is definitely the Monument deck. And there is good old Gideon. That comes down. And maybe we should tap our lands correctly. We will create a 2/2. And I don't think we want to lose the Heart to the Spellqueller. I think that we want to keep it back just to protect Gideon. But we can attack in with the Toolcraft Exemplar. Trade it with the Cloud Blazer, I do believe, would be a pretty decent trade. Yeah, I think that's a decent trade. We want to be able to attack with the Heart of Kiran. I'm pretty sure, I was surprised that the Thraben just didn't get thrown under the bus there. Well, Westvale, Abbey, possibly another Cloud Blazer coming down. There's the Monument. Monument allows my opponent to go crazy. Westvale Abbey is going to be an issue. Bygone Bishop, too. Allows for pretty decent play. Yeah, we are kind of on the ropes now against that Westvale Abbey. So hopefully we can find a Throne of the God-Pharaoh. I don't even think that does much. The Gideon just will absorb a warrior. Another Plains, I don't think that's relevant. This gives our Thraben Inspector first strike. Metallic Rebuke is one of the last cards in hand. Okay. So do I want to get rid of a warrior or put out another? The heart would just die to double blocking. Unfortunately, this is going to be rough. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Got to keep off of the Westvale Abbey, I would assume. Doesn't have first strike. Yeah, this is rough. Block on the Heart of Kiran. Lose Gideon on the backswing. But we kill the warrior. So it keeps it off Westvale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know if I can beat a Westvale is the problem. So I think I have to attack him with everything here. My opponent also has to play around a grasp. The knight's kind of pointless to attack in with. Unless there's a... Yeah, the double block still doesn't work. So I think I have to attack him like this, lose my heart for a creature just to keep off the Westvale Abbey, and then try to find like a throne. So we do get a Thraben back here. That's nice. Actually, we probably need to kill the Bygone Bishop. And guess that's pretty decent. As we keep off Westvale Abbey, get rid of the Bygone Bishop for this to snowball out of control. I'm going to crack the clue. Not attacking with the Spell Queller. There's a Scrapheap. Could be running into a Stasis Snare here, but I think I have to go for it. Yeah, nothing I can do about that. I guess I could just create another Knight Ally, but I think that is the smart play. Run out. Enthusiast. Another Scrapheap. And like I said, we're not in the worst shape here. Bygone Bishop, Cloudblazer taken care of. Those are both high impact cards. Another Cloudblazer would be just brutal to deal with. Looks like that's what's coming down. Just goes for a Dusk Dawn to kill the Scrapheap, that's perfectly fine. We need a throne. Harvester's fine. My opponent is going to get back a Bygone Bishop, Cloudblazer, and a Selfless Spirit. Still haven't found a Throne of the God-Pharaoh yet. Once we find that throne, though, I think that it's pretty much game. We can also get back to Scrapheap. So I'm assuming Dawn is going to happen this time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they can cast a Selfless Spirit. Ugh, it's a Cloudblazer. That's one of the worst cards for us to deal with, because it just gains a lot of life and cards and another blocking creature. And that Westvale Abbey is still a problem. So, in a turn here, we will get back the good old Shram's expertise is okay. Now it allows us for a Westvale Abbey of our own. So this game is not nearly over. We'll just crew a Servo. But my opponent's getting a lot of advantage off of this Dawn coming down. I assume that the Cloudblazer will block either the Scrapheap or the... Just going to take the damage, huh? Can my opponent Westvale here? Yeah, Throne... I guess you're seeing what happens when you don't draw Throne of the God-Pharaoh. So I'm actually thinking that you have Weaponcraft Enthusiast. That is a huge card in this deck. I'm wondering if there's like a kind of a alternate card that could be used in blue. Is there anything token based that is decent? Yeah, I don't think blues has the cards of the moment to kind of spread out tokens. There is that's 5 mana is what the card I'm thinking of that puts 2 Thopters. Yeah, because blue gets the Glint Nest Crane, which is quite powerful. Now my opponent's down to 4, so all I need to draw is a Throne to win. Another Harvester is okay, but we're getting Westvale next turn. And all my opponent has to do is just sacrifice the Selfless Spirit to give 2 things indestructible. So I think we are getting Westvale. And can I come back from a Westvale Abbey is the problem. I don't think I can. Just going to attack with the Scrapheap. I don't think my opponent cares at this point. Guess it's just all about finding that throne. As soon as I find the throne, yeah, I think you could go like an Oketcher's Monument version of this deck too. Another Cloudblazer. Taps out the... Another Selfless. So tons of clues. Now, the Dunes is pretty decent too in this deck. I think it actually gives it a nice little punch by being able to have an Anthem effect in here. Could see this deck make a comeback. Pretty good against the mono red, ramming up red version, especially when they bring in the they have access in the sideboard to the Sun Scorched Champion. And this is either throne or bust now, I think, for us. Well, it's a card we can cast. Still can't do anything about those Selfless Spirits. Four cards, 3 clues. The Westvale Abbey. No cards in hand. I don't think my opponent needs to really care too much. The Declaration of Stones will be good. The Fragmentize will be extremely good versus this. We have a good game plan. The Authority of Consuls will probably be we'll bring it in just because it's my opponent's trying to put out a lot of creatures. I don't know if it's actually necessary though. Does help versus Metallic. Or that's Blind Obedience that puts the artifacts into play. So yeah, it is going to go for the Ormendahl. Can I beat an Ormendahl is the question. And I think the answer is pretty much a no. I have like one turn here to draw into what I need, which is a throne. Well, we top it. I don't think I can do 15 damage is the problem. Let's see here. So tapping everything to 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Can we get in for some damage without anything dying? And the answer is no. So is there a way, and my opponent's gaining another 9 the next turn? So close. We needed it last turn. We were one turn away from this happening. Plus, there could be a spell core in my opponent's hand too. Close. Blocks with the spell core. So I think the right play is just to actually attack in with just the scrap heap, because that gives us an out. Cloudblade is actually a good one to die. So that gives us that gives us some more, because that's a flyer we can't actually deal with. So I'm going to bring it back. And crew it just to get my opponent down to 14. Don't know if that's relevant. Like I said, I don't think I can do enough damage. We were just 2 points of damage off. Another Westvale Abbey. That's not pertinent. We have to block with one of the Harvesters is the problem. And there's no way for me like killing the Aethersphere Harvester in response. And in fact, all my opponent needs to do is attack with some of these flyers. So that's a mistake by my opponent. Oh, I guess no, not. If my opponent attacks with flyers, I can give the Harvester lifelink. So we're going to go ahead and crew. Up to a 21, though. Now I really don't think there's a way I can do 21. Especially with one of the Harvesters. Yeah, I wish there was just a way to sack in response, not gain any life. Up to 23. All this stuff is just fluff here. Does allow us not to... Yeah, there don't have to be a way for thrones to stack, and unfortunately there's not. Sam's expertise, does, yeah, so we could go 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So really close. One turn off of that happening. Bring in the sideboard cards. We have, I mean, that the trump card really is Ormendahl. And we can take care of Ormendahl with the Anguished Unmakings and Deccan Stones. I could dispossess a monument. I really do think that I'll just bring in one because it's the only thing that's worth dispossessing. Pariah is unnecessary. The Dust Dawn is awful. I think the cards that want to come out here, Scrapheap's actually pretty good. So is Toolcraft Exemplar. They're not bad, but they're probably the weak link. I like Scrapheap probably a little bit better than Toolcraft, so I'm going to take out the Toolcrafts and 2 Scrapheaps. And then bring in kind of this control. The deck is very monument dependent. You get rid of the monument with the Dispossess. The problem is Dispossess a lot of times doesn't. That's why I'm just going to run the 1, just because there's not another target. And this is a fine hand. It's fast. My opponent snap keeps as well. And there's the throne. So now we're in really good shape. What we do need is one more land to get the Sram's expertise. And we do need an Aethersphere Harvester. So what is my... Oh, there's the land. So if there's a negate, it doesn't matter. We're playing a creature this turn, so... So if Essence Scatter / negate happens, it happens. I bet it's a negate that's in hand. So if my opponent taps out, it's just lethal next turn. Not quite lethal, but it's going to be 9 damage. See if a tap out for Monument happens. Yep, GG. I don't think my opponent can come back with a Resolve Throne. Another Expertise. And this is exactly where this hand explodes. You go Expertise into Throne of the God-Pharaoh. Attacking with everything. And down to a 9. And racing down to Gideon next turn that's just going to ult. Oh, Fragmentize happens. That's how they survive. So see if my opponent does tap out here. Bygone Bishop. Okay, it's not GG. We need to go the Westvale strategy, I guess. And a hand where... I don't know, maybe... Maybe we just go Gideon here. Emblem. Tack in. Not with the Weapon Enthusiast, just because it will die to the Militia Captain. But let's see. 1, 2. They'll block here, up, and it wasn't dead. 2, 4, 6, 8. Yeah, it was down to a 1. But it's just going to scoop it up. So I took out the Thraben Inspector, not the Toolcraft. Whoops. That was a mistake. Good thing we didn't see that. I don't think that I bring in any other cards here. 30 Consuls does seem neat. Just because it gains us just an insane amount of life. I'm going to bring it in for a Scrapheap. We have a lot of action. Unfortunately, I think I have to ship this back as a one-lander. We'll keep this one. It has 2 of the pieces we want. I'm going to put a Harvester. A double Harvester is kind of useless. We'll put on the bottom. Hopefully not get bugged out and draw it with the bug. The MTG bug that gives you the card you scry at the bottom. And there's a Concealed Courtyard. Okay, so we'll lead off with the Concealed Courtyard. That was kind of a bad card to draw into. We're kind of slow here. No turn 2 play by my opponent, so it means I can negate. Or, actually, there's a Selfless Spirit. And there's a Harvester. Westvale Abbey. All right, so I think one of these can be spell quellered. I'd rather do that than the Weaponcraft Enthusiast. My opponent's just going to go the good old U-White Flash aggro, which on the play is extremely powerful. You can see here, Thraben into Selfless and the Spell Queller. It's existed from a long time. This deck has been playable. Leaves up another possible Spell Queller. I have to go for it here. I think that Gideon's really weak because it just dies to... So what we're going to do is we're going to Harvester. Harvester needs to hit. If it hits another Spell Queller, we're just locked out with the Spell Queller draw. Yeah, Rebuke happens. And I don't think there's much we can do. Like, the best thing we can do is, like, Sram's Expertise and try to, like, get a Westvale Abbey. That's literally the only thing I think we can run. That does work a little bit with the Gideon. Westvale Abbey, Thraben Inspector. So close. I don't think we're going to be able to get here, though. Especially like another Spell Queller. And there's the Spell Queller. So 2/4/6, we can't actually beat that aggressive draw. So needed the deck in stones there. I don't know if that would have even mattered. But is what it is. I like game number 2 was fast, very fast. Maybe I shouldn't have taken out Toolcraft and tried to make it so my opponent had to react to me. Yeah, meh. I still think I did the right call there. Go on to the next game. All right, game number 4. This is a fine hand. We'll go ahead and keep it. We have a Gideon, Heart, Toolcraft Exemplar. We are on the draw, though. This would be a very, very quick hand on the play. Different opponent, could be the exact same deck. Like I said, MTG seems to run in like flavors of the week. The extra Gideon is fine here. Allows us to be aggressive with an emblem. We'll go ahead and Toolcraft Exemplar. So we got the Toolcraft Exemplar Heart. I mean, these are kind of a non-bow, but the whole reason we're running the cards is for the crew, and I think it's the best possible crew card. You could run like Sky Skiff instead, but I think that's kind of a bad option. So Glorbound Initiate, this is probably Crested Sunmare. This deck is everywhere too. Everyone is just really hating out the ramming up red, and has the Always Watching, which is this hand is so against any of the deck. It's such a bad combo in my opinion. I've tried it, and I'm speaking from experience because all they have to do right here is remove the Glorbound Initiate. Usually the Always Watching decks are really good with like a 1, 2, 3 drop, lots of 1 drops and 2 drops. This one's just really running Crested Sunmares and a lot of cards that just do not pair well with Always Watching, other than the Glorbound Initiate. So if I had any sort of removal here, you kill the Glorbound Initiate, they are really just trying to win from behind at that point. However, this is going to be a pretty incredible draw by my opponent because it allows him to keep up the lifelink damage each turn, and I'm the one playing from behind. So the Scrapheap was a good draw because it allows me to crew. However, like I said, I'm really playing from behind with the 5 points of lifelink per turn. Gideon can start puking out an ally each turn, but Crested Sunmare is the card that's going to get us. Again, Crested Sunmare is such an awful card too if you don't have the perfect scenario of Glorbound Initiate into Always Watching. And there goes I've seen this deck a bazillion times. It's everywhere online. Again, I tried the Crested Sunmare a couple weeks back. Didn't like it and and I was using a less greedy way. Like this deck just folds to removal. Absolutely folds to removal. So now we have to play the Heart of Kiran defensively rather than offensively. Need a land here. Unfortunately, we missed the land. So it's just going to be thrown to the God-Pharaoh. And if there is a Crested Sunmare, we're just dead. Good thing is that we do have a Heart of Kiran that's expendable. See what a Nambo? Always watching an aerial responder. You already have the Vigilance of the responder. It comes out the same turn, so you have to like play this as a 4-drop. I mean, Gasella is a better thing at that point. It does get Gasella over the Grasp of Darkness, but it is what it is. I need to kill one of them. I don't think the aerial responder will attack it unless there's just an obvious stasis snare. Dropping a land in a Crested Sunmare. My opponent gets the magical Christmas land scenario, but if not, could just be a Deccan Stone on the scrap heap. Just another Glorbound Initiate. Now I want a Deccan Stone in the sideboard. We'll bring everything in. The Fatal Pushes, the decks, those type of cards. Kind of weird. Must be a Fatal Push. Okay. All right, so we lose this one. We'll go on to the side. Bring in the Fragmentizes. Bring in the Deccan Stones and the Fatal Pushes. I believe they're useful in this one. I also do believe my opponent wants to get punished by Dusk to Dawn. Pariah is insanely good in this one as well. Dodge's Fatal Push. The other stuff is probably Sorcery Speed. Anguished Unmaking is also a fine choice. So I think that the cards we want to get rid of is just the Heart and the Toolcraft Exemplar combo. Most likely take out one of these Servo Exhibitions as well. It makes our curve a little bit awkward, but how we need to win this one is just by stabilizing and then getting in there with the Aethersphere Harvester, just not allowing our opponent to do what our opponent wants to do with that. Always watching Glorbound Initiates. Usually if you take one of the piece away from this deck, it ends up being a pretty terrible deck, where they're trying to win with basically a 2/3 Flying Lifelinker, for example. And this is a perfect end. This is exactly what we want to break up that sort of initiate type hand. So we'll go Thraben Inspector. They have a lot of cards like Blessed Alliance that get awkward without the Crested Sunmare. We can a lot of times respond to it. So depending on what I want to do here, I could take care of a clue. I think we just go ahead and run out the Throne of the God-Pharaoh and attack in. So there's a Lone Rider, pretty much a card that I don't even care about at the moment. Harvester's great. We will just keep up a crackable clue and see what my opponent wants to run. A Blessed Alliance. If that, I don't care if my opponent does. It takes a whole turn to flip and takes care of the Blessed Alliance. And there's a Consul. So Consul is something I could easily Fragmentize if I so choose. But my opponent can't really attack with anything here. I'll just crack the clue. And there's the land. Still don't think I necessarily need to deal with the combo. We can Fatal Push it right now, though. No, that'll flip the... Can't Fatal Push it. I think I cracked... Yeah. No, we'll just keep it up. That's fine. So we have the makings for a good hand. Now we just need our Sram's expertise. Looks like my opponent is in a decent position. So I'm going to crack the clue. Possibly trying to bait out a Fatal Push. There's a Glorybound Initiate. See, that's a card I think I need to take care of. And I could deck and stone the Lone Rider if I so choose. There's another backup Fatal Push. So I do think I will crew. And we're going to Fatal Push. Yeah, right now. So the Crested Sunmare doesn't get life. So the combo's annoying. We've taken care of 2 of the life linkers, so Crested Sunmare is just weak. So far, no Always Watching still. I should use some energy there for Aethersphere Harvester. There is a cast out, which is annoying, but at least he saves us some energy. We'll fragmentize it. Unfortunately, though, we are in a little bit of a pickle with that combo just getting into a lot of damage and life gain. We haven't got any of our stabilized cards. Like a Gideon here would be great. 3 cards in our opponent's hand. Finds another Lone Rider. And at this point, I think I just have to play the backup. A lot of my cards do cost us damage, too. Like that one. I'd hate to deck and stone the combo right now. But Gideon is the perfect card. Crested Sunmare is a thing. Now with that other Lone Rider. No play by my opponent. Still can't safely attack in because of the combo. But we are starting the Gideon Gideon's Intervention. Possibly choosing this Harvester? And that'll put us down to a 2. Kill the Gideon's Intervention with the Fragmentize. Unfortunately, there's still a Cast Out, possibly in our opponent's hand, or a Stasis Snare. Both those are pretty problematic. And can't do anything end of turn either, which is not where I want to be. This is... We can actually just Westvale here. So we get rid of the combo. Now we can Fragmentize. The Gideon's Intervention. And now we can crew. As well as... We'll create another 2/2. I think that's better for the Westvale Abbey. And see if another cast out is in my opponent's hand. And I'm fine with that. Blessed Alliance. Is that... And that was... So I need to use a deck in stone here. So I should have attacked with another one. Ugh. I definitely should have saw that coming. Again, that gets rid of the Westvale Abbey route. So we do need a deck in stone. The Lone Rider. And now it's off to the races to see. I think we need to go all in on Westvale Abbey just to get us back. We've lost an Aethersphere Harvester. Opponent does have a lot of draws with these clues. Two cards in hand. I can't run into like another Blessed Alliance. So we're just going to start attacking in, doing some damage. Throw the Concealed Courtyard out. No, that's probably a waste. I'd actually love to draw into Thraben Inspectors here. My opponent's down to a 21. 3 cards in hand. 2 cards in hand, so we're both flooded out. I will activate this Westvale Abbey to get another. Go down to a 1. I'm not going to go for a Westvale Abbey, I don't think. Ugh. So, might just start pumping in with... No, I think we still create another 2/2. And we'll attack in with all the 2/2s that can attack. It's just a few short turns before we take over the game. We can activate a Gideon next turn and just swing in with for everything. And be close to lethal. Because we're doing 4 here, putting us down to a set or down to a 9. Yeah, next turn should be lethal. My opponent's just really flooded out. We do have to play around to cast out. So the Throne of the God-Pharaoh. Yeah, I actually think we might just ultimate Gideon here and swing with everything. I think that's the smarter play because it forces out like a weird block. Has to have the perfect 2 cards in hand because I mean the attack alone will kill my opponent. So it has to be a cast out and a Blessed Alliance, and then my opponent loses everything. And we still have Westvale Abbey to back up. So I can't believe we won that one because we were so far behind. We both flooded out pretty bad. 6, 10. We have 11 versus 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But Gideon was definitely the... So now I still think Vidal and Pariah is extremely good. So I do want the Servo Exhibition still in this. Deck and Stones are really good against maybe just one Pariah. Dusk Dawn still is extremely good if my opponent does go Always Watching. It takes care of Lone Riders at that point. The Fragmentizes were just clutch. Fatal Pushes still. We could cut one Throne of the God-Pharaohs. We need to see one, but I think that now we're going kind of the later game route. We can cut down to 3. I don't want to see a double. And I'm glad I did that because we will keep this. It is kind of a weird hand with the Pariahs, the Harvesters. We need like a Servo Exhibition as quickly as possible, or a Sram's Expertise. But I mean, this is a decent hand. Pariah, actually, now I'm thinking about it, has a bit of a liability. All right, so this is going to be a tough hand with, like, unless we draw some removal. And we are just hitting every card we don't want to hit. Because if this Lone Rider flips, we are definitely in a world of hurt. And now it's to the point where I don't know if I can stop it from flipping. So a big Dusk Dawn will be good. Fragmentize doesn't do anything at this point. Harvester is very weak too. Unfortunately, that Lone Rider is flipping. Had a nice curve, the 1, 2, 3. So can I beat a Lone Rider is the question. Another land that I absolutely did not want to see, plus it's not a black source land. So we'll just pass a turn. And I think this one's over. Where are all our token generation? Again, we have the kind of that was the worst card to draw because now I don't kill the aerial responder. And Sorcery Speed Fragmentize. So that was just not smartly and oh, I can't crew it that way. Yep. Yeah, I thought that I could crew it this way. It doesn't do anything. I needed one more. So I should have just cast another Aethersphere Harvester there. Jeez. Another useless land. We'll Fragmentize the Always Watching. But I believe that's just lethal. Because we didn't get another black source. So, yeah, awkward draws. Possibly didn't keep that. We did draw all lands there. Like, yeah, every card was a land we drew into, I believe, right? Let's just go back to that. And there's another land. So needed a card like a Sram's Expertise. All we needed online was Aethersphere Harvester, and we can just basically block down the Ithorides at 1. The Ithorides at 1 starts to get a lot of damage through, or at least lifelink through on the Aethersphere Harvester, but all we need to do is stabilize, find that second black source, what the expertise in the Voldaren Pariah, flip the Voldaren Pariah, they sack everything. Opponent needs to like desperation to like Crescent Sunmer at that point. I'll play this matchup all day long. I'm not too worried about it. Like I said, it's a very awkward deck. I'm surprised it's as popular as it is. I've been seeing it a lot. Probably just trying to hate out the ramming up red. And but I think that's a pretty terrible way to go about it with the amount of incendiary flows and abrades in ramming up red. They just don't care about lone riders and arrow responders and those type of cards. When they just you know, their first turn they put out a threat. Second turn, if they see like Glorebound Initiator or Lone Rider, it's dead. And then third turn, they just, you know, at that point, if the opponent tries to like keep back cards to try and play defense, and they're not blocking, they're taking damage. I don't think it's a very, very reliable way to beat it. You need better ways to stabilize, more removal type cards to stabilize versus the ramming up red. But I don't know what they have in the sideboard plan for it. So not a bad showing, 2-2 with the deck. Funny, after we put in the Gideons, we dropped 2. But those were very close matchups. I would say game 3, both of those times, we maybe kept 2 awkward, slow hands with the deck. Needed some sort of, maybe cutting the inspectors is not the right, or the I can't think of the card. The Toolcraft Exemplar is not the right route to go, because if we do have like scrap heaps and Toolcrafts, then at least they can crew the harvesters. Maybe even taking out the Heart of Kiran is a bad idea. But I mean, we had to find somewhere to bring in the removal type package. Anyway, again, it's probably someone that's better with the numbers game, crunching down exactly the curve. Could turn this kind of the Throne of the God-Pharaoh deck into a thing. But I had a lot of fun playing it. Let me know in the comment section below how you felt about it. This has been Kevin with GatheringMagic.com. Thanks for watching.